se deben estudiar para lograr
Ok.
estas automatizaciones?
No, en ese tema hay que empezar a trabajarlo desde primero conocer un poco de lo que son los modelos de auditoría continua, ¿sí? Entonces ahí tenemos bastante documentación en internet y también buscar referenciaciones empresariales de cómo lo hacen para poder acoplar los modelos a los esquemas organizacionales de cada empleado, pues, o de cada, donde estemos trabajando. Es importante saber que estos modelos, puede que una empresa lo haga de una manera, puede que otra tenga otro modelo. Lo importante es conocer el contexto de qué es, para qué nos sirve y cómo lo podemos llevar e implementar dentro de las necesidades de la empresa.
Listo, muchísimas gracias. También tenemos otra pregunta. Cuando se realiza una automatización, ¿ya no es necesario realizar otra auditoría?
Llega un punto, aquí hay que aclarar dos cosas. Lo primero es que el proceso de automatización es derivado a una auditoría continua. No quiere decir que dejemos, pues dejemos a un lado el proceso auditor. El proceso auditor se sigue desarrollando, se siguen ejecutando trabajos de auditoría bajo los modelos metodológicos que tengamos implementados, simplemente que la auditoría continua se convierte en un proceso adicional de las oficinas de auditoría. Y ese proceso adicional nos permite tener una cobertura y un acercamiento más ágil con los auditados. Estos modelos de auditoría continua evolucionan a monitoreos continuos. Cuando llegamos a esas etapas de monitoreo continuo, se puede analizar la posibilidad de frenar trabajos de auditoría en sitio a procesos y simplemente hacer los monitoreos a esos departamentos o a esos procesos a través de reportes de excepción.
Muchísimas gracias. Aquí tenemos otra pregunta del señor Wilmar Flores. También es un cliente de empresas varias de Medellín. Cuando se realiza una automatización, ¿ya no es necesario realizar otra auditoría?
Creo que va muy ligado con la respuesta anterior, la que acabamos de dar. Es decir, es como vayan viendo el grado de madurez. Si estamos viendo que las automatizaciones nos permiten tener ese control semanal, quincenal, mensual, con varios reportes sobre un mismo proceso, se puede llegar a determinar, no es necesario que lo auditemos o ese proceso o ese ente auditable ya está tan monitoreado que podemos decir dentro de lo que tenemos pendiente por cubrir, eso ya se encuentra cubierto bajo un proceso de auditoría continua. Pero no quiere decir que tengamos que abolir los modelos de auditoría que actualmente tenemos implementados por las coberturas que damos.
Perfecto. Y la última pregunta de la señora Luz Dari Barajas. Si una compañía no tiene sus controles tan automatizados, es decir, prevalecen muchos controles claves manuales, ¿cómo afecta esto la eficiencia del monitoreo continuo o cómo se ha manejado de acuerdo a la experiencia que ustedes han tenido?
En ese punto es importante, o sea, por más manual que sean los controles, ¿sí? En algunas organizaciones algo tiene que llegar a una base de datos o a un almacenamiento o a un repositorio. Ahí es importante identificar dónde está la información. Si hay una información que tengamos en Excel, no quiere decir que no la podamos monitorear, se puede hacer. Lo ideal es que esté en bases de datos, pero hay empresas que de pronto no se han llegado a ese nivel y la tienen o la manejan de esa manera, pero aquí la clave es identificar dónde están las fuentes de información. ¿Cuánto afecta? Sí, posiblemente afecta el estado de lo que queremos buscar, pero no podemos decir que no se pueda hacer. Hay maneras de hacerlo a través de identificar dónde están los datos y qué queremos ver. Es importante responderse esas dos preguntas. ¿Qué queremos ver al final del ejercicio? Y qué queremos, y perdón, y dónde están los datos que queremos monitorear, sea que estén en bases de datos, en documentos, en archivos planos, pero tiene que haber un lugar donde donde se esté depositando la información.
Muchísimas gracias.
A ustedes, Camilo, Jenny, muchas gracias y a todos los presentes.
¿Me escuchan?
Sí, Jenny, muchas gracias.
Muchas
Feliz día, que
gracias.
estén muy bien. Hasta luego. Muchas gracias.
Pues para complementar un poco más, también de algunas dudas que ustedes tienen en referencia al conocimiento de los scripts y demás, los invitamos porque con la suscripción ustedes tienen acceso a la academia también, que es un complemento importante para que para las personas nuevas, para que todas las personas de las áreas donde tienen la solución puedan acceder y conocer todos los beneficios y bondades, y este acceso está con la suscripción. Entonces, si desean más información, yo les voy a enviar mis datos y los puedo orientar y guiar para que ustedes puedan acceder y que todos los usuarios puedan ver esta opción de capacitación. Es como un complemento. También Julián nos compartió en el chat información sobre los dashboards. Entonces, también si quieren ampliar información con el área comercial, lo podemos ver para que ustedes revisen, porque esa opción viene dentro del licenciamiento de ACL Robotics. ¿Listo? Entonces, dando cumplimiento al horario, vamos a... Muchas gracias, Juan Esteban, nuevamente.
A ustedes, que estén muy bien. Feliz día. Hasta luego.
Feliz día, muchas gracias. Gracias a todos los participantes y pues ahora vamos a dar continuidad al programa. Tenemos un invitado muy especial que nos acompaña desde Diligent. Entonces vamos a solicitarles por favor que hay una opción que dice más, porque esta charla va a ser en inglés, pues para las personas que son bilingües, bilingüe es perfecto. Para los que queremos tener un poquito más de claridad, hay una opción en el chat para que habilitemos los subtítulos y así podamos ver en tiempo real parte de la charla. Igual también les confirmamos que estas memorias están en nuestra página y si ustedes no las solicitan, pues se las vamos a compartir para que puedan tener acceso a todo lo que hemos visto, no solo hoy, sino durante nuestras 3 intervenciones anteriores. Entonces, voy a presentar a Murat. Cami me confirma si él ya está conectado.
Sí, sí, señora, él ya está conectado y ya tiene los permisos para activar la cámara.
Entonces, Murat ITRMBOND es el director de instituciones, socio de Diligent, tiene 10 años de experiencia en la industria del software como servicio SaaS y ha estado trabajando en Diligent enfocándose en las soluciones GRC durante los últimos 5 años. Inició su carrera en Diligent como consultor de soluciones y ahora es el director del área responsable de procesos de capacitación en ventas, preventas y consultoría para los socios de Diligent. Él nos va a acompañar con la charla Gestionando el Cumplimiento de TI. Entonces,
Jenny, buenos días, nos podrías indicar de nuevo cómo encontramos la opción para
claro,
los caracteres de traducción, por favor?
Superior derecha, hay
Sí.
una opción que dice que hay 3 puntos, como 3 puntos suspensivos, donde dicen más, ustedes le dan ahí y se va a desplegar un menú, perdón, donde ustedes pueden ver activar sus subtítulos. La opción activar subtítulos. Ahora indíquenos si ya pudieron activar la opción y si no, les apoyo. Listo, ya veo aquí a Murat conectado. Good morning, Murat.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes. A ver.
Yes, loud and clear, Murat.
Thank you, Miguel. Am I ready to begin sharing my presentation?
Not yet.
Okay.
We're trying to configure the translator because we have like 180 people in the room right now, and some of them are not able to activate the translator. So
Okay.
we can have like 2 minutes, please.
Sure, no worries. Thank you.
Okay. Que nos espera, Jenny, 2-3 minutos mientras pueden configurar sus traductores. Y hay que cambiar el idioma porque también estoy viendo que están comentando que el traductor está tomando las palabras en inglés.
Ok, perfecto. Entonces vamos a dar un momento para que podamos realizar esta opción. Si Freddy nos puede por favor apoyar compartiendo pantalla e indicándonos cómo lo podemos hacer. Muchas gracias.
Listo, voy a compartir un momento pantalla por si tenemos alguna inquietud. Me avisan por favor cuando la estén viendo.
Ya, camino.
Listo. Aquí en los 3 puntos, ¿cierto? Cuando le hacemos close caption, dice desactivar o activar subtítulos. Le hacemos clic a activar subtítulos, ¿cierto? Y nos va a aparecer esta parte de los subtítulos. Aquí en estos 3 puntos le hacemos clic y nos va a decir cambiar el idioma hablado o subtítulos. Le hacemos clic aquí en subtítulos y buscamos el idioma español. Le hacemos clic aquí al idioma español y ya como pueden observar, ya empieza a traducir del inglés al español de manera simultánea. Con mucho gusto, señora Nivi. Entonces, dando continuidad a la agenda, Murat, nice to meet you. Please continue to your presentation, please.
Thank you. And I can't turn my camera on. Can somebody enable that for me? It's okay.
Que si le pueden desbloquear la cámara, por favor.
Sí, eso ya lo estamos haciendo, pero no sé por qué él no está pudiendo habilitar la cámara, si él debería poder habilitarla.
Okay.
There you are.
Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Wonderful. Well, thank you everybody for inviting me to speak today. I am coming from the Diligent organization where I have worked in the pre-sales function for the past 5 years. Today, I'm excited to walk you through our IT compliance capabilities. And I thought the best way to demonstrate our IT compliance capabilities would be to do so in the context of a customer story. So the case study that I'm going to walk you through is representative of one of our largest customers and one of our most successful customers. And although they are quite mature in their IT compliance program, the capabilities that I will be demonstrating today are useful for all types of IT compliance practices. So to kick things off, we're just going to set the stage by outlining the problem this customer had. This particular customer needed to comply with multiple compliance frameworks, but they lacked a standardized and repeatable process for managing their workflows. And this led to a lot of operational redundancies in their work, wasted time, wasted effort, etc. And they also lacked visibility into their IT compliance posture, which impeded their ability to make business decisions. And the overall cost of the program hampered market and business opportunities. So we introduced Diligent's high-bond GRC platform, which enabled them with standardized workflows to streamline their assessment activities. They took advantage of our integrated analytic capability to automate even more in their program. Data extraction, evidence collection and control testing using robotics. And they leveraged executive storyboards to gain real-time visibility into their compliance posture, which improved their ability to make business decisions. Now, they rolled this solution out to one of their business units, and it was so successful in reducing time and cost and improving decision-making and improving their compliance posture that they then scaled the program out across their entire enterprise, which is made up of 90 different business units and responsible for bringing to market or going to market with 100 different technology solutions. So what does this process look like? The first step in the process is performing a gap assessment. So you can load in IT compliance frameworks and identify the requirements that a company needs to adhere to and the requirements that are applicable to the company's environment. Then you need to map your controls to those compliance requirements, perform testing, manage any findings, and monitor your compliance posture and activity. So this is the workflow that I'm going to be taking you through today. Now, what made this possible for them is easy to load and up-to-date regulatory content. So the content, regulatory content, IT compliance frameworks comes pre-packaged in ITRMBOND. We also have the ability to cross-map controls to multiple requirements. So effectively, teams are enabled to assess one control and comply across multiple frameworks. This helps to avoid redundancies and increase the speed of their compliance assessment activities. Additionally, with robotics, they can actually automate the work of an individual. And that isn't to say that they are trying to replace a member of their team with automation, but it is to say that automation enables them to free resources up on their team so they can perform an even greater number of activities. So let's get into ITRMBOND, and I'm going to demonstrate this for you and what it looks like today. And I just want to confirm that you can see the Diligent ITRMBOND platform.
Yes, affirmative.
Great, thank you. So to kick things off, I'm going to take us into compliance maps. This is where you can load in IT compliance frameworks and other regulations and regulatory content. And the information in compliance maps is presented in a flat view. So it's very easy for me to see my coverage for each of the frameworks as an organization I am adhering to. Now, this is a demonstration environment, so I have multiple IT compliance frameworks loaded into this environment. However, if I wanted to focus on a single framework, I can expand the drop-down menu. And for the purpose of today, let's focus on NIST framework for improving critical infrastructure and cybersecurity. So now I can see the particular framework that I want to manage for today. And if I expand the framework, I can see a list of all of the requirement sections that are loaded into, that I need to adhere to as an organization. Now you'll also notice that along the top, we have several buttons, and these buttons act as filters that enable me to focus my attention on the information that is most important to me. So in the context of IT compliance, if you have a gap, that's an area that requires your attention. And if you have coverage, then you are meeting those requirements. So to prioritize my work and to focus my attention, I can click the gaps button. And now you'll notice that the NIST framework has filtered to only show me the requirements section where I have a gap. Now, if I expand the requirements section further, I can see a subsection that requires my attention. And if I click into one of the requirements, a side panel will appear, and I can review the requirement details and description to perform my gap assessment. So all of the information within the requirement details is coming directly from the authoritative source. So all of the content, regulatory content that we provide is up to date, and it is going to provide guidance in terms of what an organization needs to do in order to comply with that requirement. So as it relates to performing the gap assessment, it's very simple. I first just need to understand the requirement and determine whether or not it is applicable to my environment. Not every requirement is applicable to every operating environment for a business. So this is the first step to determine its applicability. I've determined that this requirement is applicable, so I'm going to leave this toggle set to yes. Now I need to determine whether or not we have a control or some level of coverage for this requirement. Now, if we scroll back up, this requirement is requiring an organization to identify the credentials for individuals within their organization, and they need to make sure that any issues are managed, verified, and revoked as it relates to the authorization of those individuals to access specific devices and for other users and processes as well. So we're basically talking about user access here, and we're making sure that individuals are able to access systems with only the appropriate access rights. Now we need to prove that we're actually doing this as an organization. So the first thing I can do is I can click, okay, I know as an organization we have a policy that addresses our access control requirements. So I'm going to set this to covered. I know as an organization we're adhering to this requirement, so I'm just going to set it to covered. But from an auditing standpoint, I actually need to demonstrate proof that we are actually doing this work. So you'll notice below there's an opportunity for me to map this requirement to my control environment, and the work that I do within my control environment is going to provide the evidence and proof that will enable me to defend my compliance posture and the conclusion that I've reached in terms of being covered for this requirement. So one of the things that I'm going to do here is I'm just going to click Map Controls. Now we have a bot in the system that is going to scan the language of our control library. It's going to read our control descriptions, and it's going to compare those descriptions with the language in the requirement. And if it finds a match, then we can use that control suggestion and map the control to the requirement. So now you'll see we're defending our compliance posture, we're defending our conclusion in terms of being able to meet this requirement by mapping a control to the requirement. And what you'll notice here within the map control is that we have a summary table that is summarizing the test results for this control. So in this particular case, it says we have 3 controls that have passed. So we've tested this control 3 times across 3 different products, 3 different business units. Each time we tested the control, it's passed. So that's effectively defending our conclusion. So now let's click into the control ID. And we can go about managing this control. So one of the challenges in terms of managing an inventory of controls is updating those controls on an annual or semi-annual basis. So the nature of controls and the way they operate in an organization may change. And compared to status quo, where you are updating control descriptions in spreadsheets, Hybon offers a much more automated way for ensuring updates to control descriptions are realized across the entire platform. So if I expand the text editor, I can manage the description, and I can say updating the control for GIT Summit. Close this out and then click Save. Now, if I scroll further, you'll notice that there are 3 different projects that have inherited this control description. So 3 projects that are using this control description to assess this particular control. And all 3 of the projects are out of sync with the master definition. So rather than having to go into multiple spreadsheets, multiple shared drives, multiple folders, etc., and update the definition of each of these controls individually, what I can do is, well, first of all, I can actually compare the changes. So on the left side, I can see the master definition. On the right side, I can see what the changes will be if I update the projects to be synced to the master definition. So anything in green, highlighted text, are the changes that will be applied to the project. And I can see when the last changes were made and by whom. So I'm just going to update the projects, update all of the projects. And now you can see that all of the control descriptions are up to date. Now, additionally, another thing that I'm going to do is run a robotic test. So rather than test this control manually, what I'm going to do is run a robot that is going to scan across multiple systems to review the access rights and to ensure that those access rights for individuals are assigned appropriately. And in this particular case, what we're actually monitoring for is terminated employees, so individuals that are no longer with the company that may still have access to company systems. So if I edit the robotic task, I can adjust the parameters and define the SLA period that we're going to be monitoring for removing terminated employees from critical company systems. And then if I skip to the end and confirm and update the task, the robot will update. So I'm going to pop back into PowerPoint for a second. And let's just take a second to talk about what's happening here when we're automating a control. So we have Hybon, so operating in the cloud. And when we run a robotic task, it will send a signal into the customer environment where we have a data processing engine that will then extract data from multiple systems. In this case, we have data coming from Active Directory and data coming from a human capital management system. So when an individual is terminated from an organization, they're first removed in the human capital management system. Although if they're leveraging single sign-on and Okta, that information is coming from Active Directory. So anyone that is not in the human capital management system, but is still active in Active Directory, should be investigated. There should be a signal, a flag, an exception, etc., to ensure that this individual is removed. It appears that they're no longer with the company, so we need to make sure that they no longer have access to company systems. So after the logic is applied from these 2 systems, we join them together, and any individual who, again, is active in Active Directory but who is not active in the human capital management system will appear in an exception table. And then this exception table is published back into the Hybon environment, which will then automatically trigger an investigation workflow. And that trigger will assign the exception to a member of the team. And upon the completion of their investigation, the results will then be appended to the appropriate control. So how we connect the investigation to the control is through a key risk indicator metric or a key control indicator metric. And if you'll remember, when we were in compliance maps working in the NIST framework, and we mapped the control to the requirement, the control test summary results were shown within the requirement detail after we made that association. But we can actually map a single control to multiple frameworks. So by testing one control, we can adhere to multiple frameworks for SOC, ISO, NIST, etc. And of course, all of this information can be fed back into an executive dashboard And with respect to robotics, it's very much set it and forget it. So you can put the analytic on a schedule and it will run in the background, and executives can just log into a dashboard to monitor what's happening within their systems and to monitor their compliance posture. So let's come back into ITRMBOND, and we can see that the robot task has completed successfully. So if I come back into the control and we refresh the page, we should see some different results. Okay, so we ran the robotic test and now all 3 controls have failed, right? So we need to figure out what's going on here. So let's click into this first IT audit project for our IoT division. And so we're in the project now. This is actually where individuals on the team are going to be assigned and to a particular control test and performing their work. And if I scroll down further, let's go into the control assessment area. Number 1, we can see that the control description has been updated. So we updated the master definition, and now the definition in the project has been updated. So this is going to give us assurance that we're always working with the most up-to-date version of our controls, which is going to lead to more accurate results and better reporting. And then if I scroll down a little bit further, we can see that the control is not operating effectively as a result of our exceptions identified through our robotic test. So with robotics, and particularly this particular access review test, we can actually remove this work off of the plate of a member of the team, because the system can actually automate the test results, and that's giving individuals back in their day to focus on other tasks and responsibilities. Now, that being said, not everybody is in a place in their maturity where they can leverage robotics. So let's talk about ways that you could assess this control more manually or through traditional methods. So one of the most important things with respect to managing a GRC program is the ability to collaborate with other stakeholders in the organization. So with robotics, we have a direct connection to our source systems. We can pull data and analyze that data and look for exceptions automatically. But absent or without analytics, we likely will need to ask a member of our IT team to provide us with a sample of data, or to provide us with a policy of information or policy representative of the information that we're attesting to. So if I want to request information from a member of the organization, what I can do is send them a request. Now, this is effectively replacing emails in an organization and enabling members of the team to get out of their inboxes. The other advantage to leveraging this built-in email capability is that it has automated reminders, so that in the event that somebody forgets to respond to the request, the system will follow up on their behalf and they don't have to chase individuals down, which is actually a major pain point for most assurance professionals. So if I click into the request, I have the ability to update the description, and here I can specify what exactly I'm looking for from this individual. I can identify the individual who's responsible and type in their email. Now, this email can be sent to anybody in the organization. They do not require a license to collaborate with the team that is sending the request. So again, anyone in the organization or even outside of the organization can collaborate with members of the IT compliance team, the risk team, the audit team, etc. So you'll also notice that I have the ability to update the subject of the email message and just personalize the message for the person that I'm sending the request to. And then there's also a checkbox to enable weekly reminders. So in the event that the stakeholder doesn't see my request, or they get busy and they forget to respond, the system will follow up on my behalf and I don't have to take time out of my day to chase this individual down. So I'm going to send this request, and now we'll just pivot into a new window, and I will show you the experience of the stakeholder that is being asked to provide evidence. So here we can see that the request has landed in the inbox of an IT administrator, let's say. I can see the description of the request, etc. Now, a couple things about the request is that you can change the sender name and the sender domain to reflect that of the company that is actually sending the request. So you don't have to use high-bound notifications. You can use the organization name and domain. And you can also add the company logo to the bottom of the email message. And this is going to make individuals who have never received this email or invite for the first time feel a lot more comfortable clicking a link. They'll know it's not a phishing attempt. On the topic of security, data is encrypted in transit and at rest. And when a stakeholder navigates through the link, it's going to redirect them into a request portal where they can then drag and drop files from their computer and leave commentary. So as soon as the file is uploaded and the comment is published, the individual who sent the request will be notified. So they will be able to action this data right away. So let's come back into the environment. And you'll notice that if I now click into the request, I can see the file that the individual uploaded, and I can see their comment, and I can tell them, yes, this is exactly what I needed. Now, in terms of using this work, what we can do is we can leverage it in multiple ways. So number one, if it's a PDF, we can leverage the PDF annotator. To mark up the PDF. So we can just, draw a box and add a text box and mark up the document any which way we'd like. And then we can, during the review process, we can draw attention to the areas of the document that we've marked up. And then we can save those changes. Additionally, if we're working with a sample of data, then we can leverage the Office 365 integration, and we can open this document in the online version of Excel, Word, or PowerPoint, and make changes in real time. Now, what this is going to accomplish or enable is the ability to eliminate version conflicts. So we've all probably experienced the time when a document has been uploaded to SharePoint or Box or Dropbox, and an individual downloads that document, makes changes to the document, and then somebody goes in and reviews the document, and they're not looking at the latest version, right? It's a bit of a headache and a pain. So with online editing, what you're going to be able to do is make changes online. All of the changes are synced to the area of the application where the document was uploaded. So we can, mark up the document. We can look at the access review rights for these individuals, the day that they were terminated, the day they were removed from critical systems, and just say yes, no, and save the document. And then what we'll get is a version history of that document, which will show us, again, all of the previous versions of the document. It's going to give us an audit trail. So we can see there's 4 versions of the document, and we can see that the current version of the document was updated by myself less than a minute ago. So if ever we make a mistake or we want to review the audit trail of changes that have been made to the document, we can go back to a previous version and we can revert back to that previous version if necessary. So everything is centralized, organized, and secure. Now, when it comes to preparing our results for facilitating a review workflow, we work in this rich text editor. And again, we can expand it, and it's going to give us all of the same formatting capabilities as an application like Word would. Additionally, what we can do is cite our work. So I can highlight text, and we can query our documents. So I can search for all of the documents in this project. Any different query is going to produce, different results. So here's actually the document that we got through the request. So I want to link to this document, and then the document is going to render. And then what I can also do is add clippings to the document, and this is going to facilitate the review process. Now, because this control has failed, I want to raise a finding, and I can leverage this issue template or finding template to document what I've observed and provide recommendations for the business in terms of why this particular issue may have occurred and what the business should do to correct or remediate this issue or finding. So I can add my recommendation, I can indicate the severity for the prioritization purposes, I can identify the issue source, I can even identify the risk and impact to the organization, which is very important for driving change in action. I can specify the cause, etc. So all of this information can go into a template. And then I can sign off on this work and notify the next reviewer. And then when the reviewer comes in, they can actually click into my work, review the document, etc. And if they'd like, they can actually send me another note and say, this looks good, or they can make recommendations in terms of what I need to do, or maybe things that I've missed or things that I should correct. So effectively, what we've demonstrated up to this point is the ability to map controls to multiple compliance requirements, the ability to leverage robotics to actually automate the testing of those map controls, which again is going to lower the cost of compliance, it's going to streamline our execution, etc. Now, if we're not leveraging robotics, we can leverage the communication and collaboration tools to solicit evidence from stakeholders in the organization. So we leveraged a request with built-in reminders to get an updated policy document from an IT administrator. And then furthermore, we can leverage the PDF annotator as well as online editing for more traditional or sample-based approaches to testing. Now, again, with the online editing capabilities and with the PDF annotator, we have the ability to monitor our version history. Everything is tracked in an audit log, and everything is going to be centralized and organized securely. Furthermore, we can facilitate review workflows. We can notify the next reviewer. And then after a reviewer has monitored our work or reviewed our work, they can leave us comments and suggestions to let us know that the work is good, or to let us know what we need to do to update our results and better prepare our work. So now let's just shift into reporting. So I'm going to show you a couple different types of reporting. The first is a project report. So if I come into the results tab, we have some built-in reporting, and we can see a count of our findings by type and by severity. And then we're getting an overall assurance score, which is basically indicating how much our controls are mitigating risk across our control objectives. And then if we come into fieldwork reports, here's where we can access our one-click reports. So virtually anything in the project can be extracted into a PowerPoint, PDF, or Word format. And at the top, we can quickly generate an extract up to the minute extract of our work performed thus far. So I'm going to generate the PDF version. And what I will see now is information that has been documented into the project. So here I'm getting my planning information, the purpose, the background, the scope, get an overall project rating. I can see management's response thus far to the work that has been performed in their process areas and across the organization. And then I can see a summary of my issues, and then a more detailed view of those issues, including the description, the risk impact, the recommendation, etc. So this report type is a very good way to quickly provide an update in a committee meeting, or for stakeholders that prefer to have something that's printable or in the form of a handout. Again, generated with a click of the button. And what I've demonstrated is a templated one-click report, but we can actually customize the layout of this report per a customer specification. So if a customer has their own report template or wants the data to appear differently, then they can actually inform the configuration of this report template. And then the next time they generate the report, it will be in the format of the report template. Now, the next area that I wanted to show is our dashboard reporting capabilities. So if we come into storyboards, we can move into our compliance dashboard. And this dashboard is really designed to just show you the art of the possible. But what it's basically doing is it is reporting in real time. It's pulling data from our compliance requirements, from our control library, and it is presenting this data in an executive style manner or view. And it's also giving us the ability to add context to the information that is being presented here. So the dashboard itself is very easy to set up and edit, etc. But what's important is that we can actually tell a story with the data. And this is really necessary if we want other stakeholders in the organization to understand why this information is important. So if we're providing recommendations, we need to align the business and we need to gain the business's consensus on the way forward. And the best way to do that is to make sure that stakeholders who are consuming this information are accurately interpreting the data. And if we scroll down a little further, you'll see that we have pie charts and bar charts and heat maps, etc. But if a stakeholder doesn't know what this data represents, then they might say or think that it looks good, but they're not going to know what to do with it. So having the ability to annotate information here is going to be very powerful for aligning stakeholders. And if the data is more interpretable, it becomes more actionable and therefore more valuable. So again, this dashboard is real time. As the underlying data changes in our environment, so too will the data reflected in these visualizations. But this is something where an executive can come in, they can sip their coffee in the morning and they can pull up this dashboard and they can get a real-time view of their compliance posture, the progress of their assessments, and any outstanding findings or actions that need to be managed. So I'm just going to scroll down a little further just to give you a flavor for the different visualizations that are available. Again, we have a heat map, and this is showing us our areas of risk or our risk exposure across control objectives or process areas. We can view our risks in the context of a scatter plot to see what are our top risks, which areas of our organization have the highest risk exposure. And we can monitor our test results. And we can also leverage this dashboard as a navigational tool. So you'll notice that we have this record table. This is actually giving us a flat view of our controls and our control test results. And if we want to click into the project where this work is being performed, and we can go directly from the dashboard and view the details of this work. Additionally, we can monitor our remediations and our corrective actions. Now, one of the nice things about this dashboard is that it's very social. So what we can do is actually generate a web link. We can share, we can copy the link and then share this link with anybody in the organization, and they will then get access to a read-only real-time version of the dashboard. So that, again, they don't need a license, and they don't have to pay to have access to this data. And this is really effective in helping to promote a more risk-aware culture within the organization. So you can share this link with anybody, and then again, they're going to get access to a read-only real-time version of the dashboard. So in terms of what I wanted to cover today, that basically brings us to the end of the presentation, but we have about 13 minutes left where I can answer any questions. Any thoughts or questions? Are people still with me?
Let me see, Murat. I had a problem here with the application, and I was able to see 2 or 3. Let me check here. Mr. Nilsson, Octavio Cubillos is asking, is it possible to control the time of the activities, comments, upload files, review?
Yeah, everything is time bound, so you can establish due dates, milestone dates, and then the system will recognize when something is past due, and you'll receive a notification so that task or activity can be actioned and escalated if necessary. And then even with respect to the robotics capability, you can put those analytic tasks on a schedule as well. So absolutely, you can definitely track everything based on sort of expected completion dates.
Efectivamente, se puede controlar todos los tiempos a las actividades como las quieran setear, registrar u obtener posteriormente. Let me see if I have something else here. Nielsen, again, is asking, can an audit program be managed with compliance maps?
Yeah, I mean, it's really up to you, I suppose. It's the audit program is typically managed within the risk and control, the master risk and control library, and then within the project section of our tool. I haven't heard of any customers leveraging compliance maps to manage their audit program, but that isn't to say that you couldn't do it. So that is one of the nice things about HiBond, is that it's a bit of a Swiss Army knife. You can leverage it in multiple ways to achieve a desired outcome. And we, during the implementation process, really want to align to the preferences of how our customers prefer to work. So if there's a good reason to leverage compliance maps, I don't see any reason why not, although that's not traditionally what it's been leveraged for.
Okay, Nilsson, mira, Murat contesta o te responde que sí es posible, que es extraño, porque pues realmente no es la forma como por costumbre se hace, ya que dejan separadas las dos actividades, la de auditoría y la de cumplimiento, para hacer el trabajo con los riesgos, pero que si llega a ser algo que el usuario o el cliente o la organización lo solicita, que se vería cómo se puede generar los flujos y generar las condiciones para que quede de esa forma. Let me see if I have something here. No, Brad, I think that's all that we have right now.
Great.
For the time being, we will be pending the, excuse me, here's another one. From Rodrigo Alberto Acevedo. Number 1, is it possible, does the app enable, it's enabled to support
Yep.
SOX? compliance.
Yes, Yep.
Okay, la respuesta es que sí. It's able to, cannot see what's.
In other languages, yes, it's also